This takes out your North Korea argument, even if it doesn't take out hegemony. It says that diplomatic capital does not trade off on other issues. It's empirically denied. Also, you conceded the argument that you read diplomatic credibility is high, which takes out the uniqueness of your advantage. No new arguments of it to where this was explicitly flagged to being able to see your uniqueness. Also, if the United States does not have any diplomatic trade-off in any arena, there's no connection between Iran and North Korea as well. There's no possibility of being able to garner any offense on that advantage on the Chad debate. And also takes out all these add-ons because the United States would not have diplomatic credibility that was translated into either Chad or something for the Uyghurs. Say African instability against it. It's not unique because Sudan would necessarily be a huge conflict and no one has intervened necessarily. It has not intervened in this absolute. You have no scenario for escalation. Also, the great power wars take out this argument because no one would go to war with you rather that has nuclear weapons. Your choice evidence is pretty stupid. Indicates that would have to be proxy conflicts, which would not happen in the world of no great power escalation. You don't even extend the external link to your Uyghur argument. It's going to continue the provinces is empirically denied because Uyghurs are rising against the United States. You must have Uyghurs evidence or at least a piece of brink evidence. This limit has to be able to garner literally any offense on this Israel. We're not going for the counterplan. You should have taken it nowadays no framework with which you'd be able to project the negative, but I'm pretty sure they conceded again the net benefits of this argument are Ignatius evidence indicates that if we don't include Israel, it would lead to massive Israeli vulnerability and without acquiescence with Israeli backlash against the plane. Or Horowitz evidence indicates it's true to be able to solve vulnerability. This evidence says they need to be a direct participant in the talks. If you do not include Israel directly in the talks and it only happens later, they would backlash against they consider piece of Steinberg evidence indicates that would view any type of inclusion would necessarily happen after the plan as well. The conditions of the plan is rhetorical. Either the United States wouldn't follow through. They don't believe that Iran would because there's no trust between them. You also consider the impact of this evidence. Our Parsi evidence indicates that it gives Israel a chance. This is necessary to give Iran a real chance to be able to work with the relatively established relations. There's no possibility that there's no possibility of that without engagement and inclusion in the relations. Our Steinberg evidence indicates this would be a nuclear war in the Middle East. This is insulated from the rest of our great power wars arguments. This is not going to escalate necessarily, but it does mean there would be a nuclear war in the Middle East that outweighs the affirmative because they have really no scenario for escalation. This would happen fairly immediately too because Israel feels vulnerable immediately when the plan is done because this is not something that has happened in the past. I'll explain this more in the engagement debate advantages, which is why I'm at now engagement. Group the engagement debate supplements this is not the plan you continue. What is the evidence that these are unconditional talks about things like a backdown a security guarantee where the United States has to give a massive concession, which is much different than the status quo. Also doesn't tie in the nuclear issue, which gives us massive amount of uniqueness to be supplements. Our New York Times evidence indicates that we've offered them deals in the past with these all fall through because we weren't actually committed to it. The fallback option provides us a bit of uniqueness, if nothing else, to be able to garner offense for our disadvantages. The one and see Reinberg and Take evidence indicates it's not inevitable there would be a massive concession by the United States as a conditional, unconditional argument us going for at the top. They'll also make a few arguments about engagement now and the disadvantage that will take out any association with that, and also this doesn't take out our Israel disadvantage as well because it's just about things like Iraq, not a United States security guarantee that would foreclose the option of the United States being able to support Israel in the status quo for hegemony. I'm not going for alternative causality, but I'll go for a high evidence because this may be some of the best Jennings piece of evidence you'll ever read. The ASAP point is our NIE evidence indicates that soft power and diplomatic credibility are high in the status quo. We're working everywhere. If money and connection with allies is not the internal link to soft power, which is what they said in the 1AR, I'm not sure necessarily what is the B-sub, what is the 2NC NIE evidence indicates that with military power as well as soft power, we are able to control the globe. You can read a piece of evidence indicates that naval and air power are crucial to be able to sustain United States hegemony. The disadvantage to it's inevitably going to collapse. Also, your Ferguson and Calisite evidence are probably talking about hard power anyway, which was accessed by our NIE evidence. You can see the piece of Ogura evidence as another 2NC evidence indicates there's no inevitably the United States smart power is going to decline, but it's very high in the status quo. There's no global challenge. They aren't even able to isolate which challenger to the United States. There's no impact anyway. The A-subpoints are plain evidence indicates that there will be massive challenges when I solve conflicts. The B-subpoints are Brimwood's evidence, which is a damning concession. No possibility of these small conflicts being able to be solved by the United States. We did not solve for Yugoslavia in disintegration. I'm not sure we might be able to do it in Africa as well when we're not even intervening in Sudan. And that's why North Korea would go for our argument that the talks are succeeding. We read a couple pieces of evidence indicates that a deal was necessarily put in place. Also, you have no evidence that means that would be a guarantee that would not back out inevitably, and also no proliferation impact because of the no great power war escalation. Also, the argument literally makes no sense. We would allow Iran to be able to have nuclear weapons and then tell North Korea they would not. I'm not sure what the diplomatic credibility translation is, especially due with the damning concession on the disadvantage Colombia. their direct evidence indicates the way that it makes the possibility of great power were absolutely unthinkable. There's no one that's going to challenge the United States because they are so entrenched in our economic system and they extend our environment implication that our evidence indicates that there is progress being made in the Amazon right now, which takes your old study piece of evidence, this evidence of reference studies in the past. Our evidence indicates that there is progress being made in the steps to be able to agree that the Amazon rainforest, but it would be backtracked in the past Colombian FTA. They can see the true value of the internal leader. Very evidence indicates it would be massive. See, you do not have impact even to the possibility of extinction to try or die. There's a hidden threshold within our very evidence as well. Indicates that we can't be pushed over the edge to make this Navy evidence. This evidence is awful. It indicates that Navy is the Navy is the absolutely crucial internal link in the opening move to be able to have any possibility of hegemony in the first place. Our piece of evidence indicates that whether we close off the Panama Canal, the United States does have to go around South America like it did like ships had to do in the 1800s, so we would not be able to get to the Pacific Ocean, the Atlantic Ocean nearly as easily with our naval, which explore close the possibility of being able to have naval hegemony. They say one good policy you can see our one is the Ladine evidence, which I'm going to say that indicates that concession is absolutely crucial to be able to solve, as well as a slew of twin and our evidence, which shouldn't necessarily have to extend indicates there's no concession that's going to happen in the step quo. They say engage for now. You can see our broad evidence indicates that the quid pro quo is necessarily different unconditionality, necessarily safe base, and it doesn't deny the true value of our link claim just because there's been concessions in the past refer issue specific uniqueness they made. The concessions argument, your evidence indicates there has to be an enormous concession. It just says the ship was a possibility of Washington Post evidence indicates that they're holding it hostage. It's the newest piece of evidence which is not going to make any concessions, and specifically that apply to Columbia FTA. I'm not sure what the internal link to their mortgage piece of evidence is anyway, or Doug and Kreinberg evidence indicates they like the plan. This evidence is more specific to the security guarantee that you want because the United States diplomacy and not confrontation. What is the evidence about engagement substantiates the link?
Okay.